It's the end of the month, so let's chat about what I finished reading in September. Let's start with the two books I don't have to hand. The first is Tokyo Vice, because it was a digital read. I bought this after Chris Broad from Abroad in Japan. As one of his Patreon posts, he recommended a bunch of books about Japan. And I'd read one of them before, which was a true crime called The People Who Eat Darkness. And then Tokyo Vice is also not true crime, but it veers into that territory. So Tokyo Vice is about this American guy who finished his studies in Japan and then went on to become the first non-Japanese person to work at a Japanese newspaper. Like, that is just a crazy achievement. So this book is written by him, and it's sort of like a memoir, because it just talks about his time as a reporter. And it covers like dealings with the Yakuza, how reporters would have to stay friendly with police so that they could get potential leads or information. Really interesting, fascinating stuff. And it's one of those things where it just seems like it's another world, because a lot of the book sort of not only is in Japan, but also takes place pre-mobile phones. And so obviously there's a huge difference in how reporters and things would behave, if that's the right word. You know, just little things that add up that make it feel very different to how things might be now. So you have this guy that just is involved in these crazy antics, but then you can just go find him on Twitter, tweeting about things happening now, and the modern world blows my mind. If you're interested in true crime, yeah, I recommend it. It was really interesting, really fascinating. You learn a lot about both the Yakuza and the police in Japan and the newspapers. I enjoyed it. It's a recommendation from me. Next was Far Cry by Emma Smith. This was one of those that I wanted to finish by the end of summer, so I was rapidly trying to finish this off at the start of September. And I think I timed it well, because I finished it and then the weather really turned and got cold. So the reason why is that this is about, what was the timeline? I think it was set in the 30s. I feel like so many of the Persephone books that I read are set in the 30s. But it's about a girl who gets taken to India by her dad. Because the girl's mother has lived in America for like most of her life and has sent a letter to say that she's coming back to Britain, and he wants to keep the daughter out of her hands, and so he then goes to his other daughter, who is a grown woman in India, to hide. It's a weird setup. So you have this father and daughter who don't really get on that well, because a lot of the raising has actually been left to the guy's sister. So they don't really have much in common. So it's such a weird relationship. But then you also get to witness this really long journey. You know, they're on a boat for weeks, and then they're on multiple trains, and then staying at hotels at different stops. So it's a very long journey to get to where the sister lives. And then once we're there, I found the book picked up, because you get this really interesting look at this strange couple that I kind of wasn't expecting. So the daughter slash sister is half sister of the girl who is one of the main characters. So again, she's family, but to her, they don't really know each other, especially since she's lived in India for so long. But her and her husband have this very odd relationship where she was so pretty and coveted. You know, she would show up in a ballroom and everyone would have their eyes on her. And he starts to feel bad that he's kept her away from the world. They are in the middle of nowhere, and the only people that they know are the people who work on the plantation. And she kind of feels that she should be somewhere else, but is trapped in this weird complex with herself, and so refuses to leave because, I don't know, that would mean she's failed or something. It's very weird and very interesting, and I thought the book definitely became more interesting once this couple entered the story. Other remark, it was written a long time ago, so obviously warnings for racism. It's about British people in India in the 30s, so you're gonna get some not great words. But, it's to be expected. So yeah, I think I settled on like 3.5 out of... I was gonna say 10 then, that would be kind of mean. No, out of 5. I enjoy my time with it, but I do think I'm starting to decide that some of these, British books from the 30s aren't necessarily for me. I think I just had a winner with that first sci-fi one that I got from Persephone last year. So yeah, it might be the last book like that I read for a while. Next was volume 2 of 20th Century Boys. I don't know how I had such a long gap between these. I guess it took me a while to get a hold of a copy. This is going to be one of those that's going to be really hard to talk about because there's so much plot and intrigue and weird stuff. But this one went more into detail into one of the friends of the main character, and what he's up to now. And yeah, I really enjoyed that stuff. So he's left Japan, and he's a bit of a... I don't know what his job would be. He seems to be like a tough man for hire. So he gets prostitutes out of bad situations, and very much wants to help them out. And then gets called up for all sorts of odd jobs, like removing troublesome people from hotels. But then his world kind of happens to cross with the stuff that's been going on in Japan with the cult and everything. Anything else I could say? Probably not. I don't know if I'll do a video talk about my thoughts about 20th Century Boys so far, but there's like 12 volumes of the perfect edition as well. So there's a lot of story left to go, but I'm enjoying my time with it. It's good so far. I've got 2 more books that I own. Maybe I'll do a video about it when I finish those. We are racing through them today, and I am not slowing down because the last is The Stone Sky. This is the final in the Shastadeath? Broken Earth? Shastadeath? How does it not say on the front? Broken Earth. This is the 3rd final installment of the Broken Earth trilogy. And so I'm not going to be able to talk about much because that's spoiler territory. We do get more stuff about this sort of like previous ancient race that was living on the planet. So we get some more of the like old technology and a little bit more of an explanation of how that came to be. So that was cool. Way more mother-daughter relationship stuff, which was really heart-wrenching, and I think it was a really solid ending to the story. And I I don't think it could have gone any better than how it ended, really. If you see my other videos, then you'll know I highly recommend reading this. It's won awards for a very good reason. And don't be intimidated by it. It's not as complex and crazy as you think it might be. It's pretty readable. It's very good. And this has convinced me that second person can be more readable than I give it credit for when it's got a good reason to be there, which it does here. I think I'm getting more used to the second person stuff. We'll leave it there. That's a weird thing to end on, but I will end it there. Mabel by R.F. Kuang. I've recorded a whole video talking about this, so you could go watch that, or you could just hear my recommendation. That is, the book is worth the hype. It's very good. It's very political. Includes a lot of stuff about language and the origin of words, which is so cool and interesting. Some lovable characters and a lot of characters you really want to punch in the face. Yeah, worth a read, and is the perfect book for the autumn fall vibes, as it is dark academia. Yeah, R.F. Kuang, she's done a good job. She's done a great job. And finally, we have The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. So I found out about this book recently because a trailer came out last week, and it was for the film A Knock at the Cabin, I think it's called, by M. Night Shyamalan, and a lot of people on Twitter were moaning that the trailer didn't include a credit that said, based on the book The Cabin at the World by Paul Tremblay. Because, yeah, that's what the film is based on. So I kind of, that was in my brain. Didn't really think much of it. I thought it was kind of amusing. The internet was coming to the defense of this author. I thought it was quite nice. And then a little bit later, like a couple of days later, I was hovering around the library. I wanted to see what horror books they had on offer. I was starting to get those October spooky vibes. And I was actually looking for a different book that was recommended by Books and Bow. It's called House Full of Ghosts. And that happened to be by Paul Tremblay. So whilst in the library, I connected those dots and said, well, I was looking for a book by him anyway. And this happens to be that book everyone on Twitter was talking about the other day. So in the absence of the other one, I picked this one up and gave it a try. So if you've seen the trailers to the film, I think it's, even if it's not stated, it's pretty obvious what the premise is. So you have this family on holiday. It's a gay couple with their adopted kid, very cute, very sweet, and a very large man appears and talks to the girl for a bit, and then kind of hints that her and her family will have to do something. Then 3 other people arrive with these very weird weapons, and they have a proposal. If you want to hear nothing else other than this is like a tense, thrillery vibe, horror-esque, tiny little bit horror, and you don't want anything given away, then you can stop listening now. But if you want to at least hear the crux of the premise is that they tell the family that they need to sacrifice one of their own to save the world. Because if they don't, then massive apocalyptic events will happen. So you spend the whole book wondering whether this is true, whether they're pulling a con, and bit by bit, things get more and more tense and start to unravel. But I think thrillers aren't necessarily for me, and yeah, this was definitely more thriller than a horror. But I do think the writing was good enough that I do want to check out the Head Full of Ghosts. Yeah, I want to check out the Ghost one that he's done. So yeah, definitely not done with the author just yet. But one minor point I will say, that last chapter, I'm not going to say what happens in the chapter, but it's told in, would it be or first person plural? Because it's told by saying we did this and we went out and I really didn't like it. It really took me out of the story when it was supposed to be this really emotional scene. And I really would have preferred if that little bit was just told in third person, or even third person omnipresent. Yeah, it's really weird. I didn't like it at all. I don't know why I end up reading books with all of these weird perspectives and writing styles. It's also present tense, which wasn't too bad, but I guess it's good for tension, but I'm not a massive fan. I just want some normal third person, guys. Past tense, I love it, guys. Just give that to me. Sorry if the energy of this one's been very weird. I think it's just because I realised it's the 29th and I'm not going to finish any more books and the weekend's coming up, so let's hurry up and get my wrap up done. That's where I'm at today. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. I think I did. This weird energy is going to continue because I think I'm going to record another one about what I'm about to read. And if that video doesn't appear, you'll know that I decided to not do that. Right, I'm going to leave because this is weird enough already. Thanks for watching.